Prime Minister Narendra Modi has written a detailed blog that's been posted on LinkedIn, the professional networking site. In this post, he talks about different aspects of the India growth story. He's quoted two reports on the Indian economy, one from SBI Research and another by Anil Padmanabhan. The research by SBI points out, based on income tax returns, that the weighted mean income in India has made a commendable leap in the last 9 years from 4.4 lakh rupees in the fiscal year 2014 to 13 lakh rupees in the current fiscal. Padmanabhan's study of income tax returns data suggests a widening tax base across various income brackets. Each bracket has seen a minimum threefold increase in tax filings, some even achieving a nearly fourfold surge. Further, the research highlights the positive performance in terms of increase in income tax filings across states. When comparing ITR filings between 2014 and 2023, the data paints a promising picture of increased tax participation across all states. ITR data analysis shows the state of Uttar Pradesh has emerged as one of the top performing states when it comes to ITR filings. In June 2014, Uttar Pradesh reported a modest 1.65 lakh ITR filings, but by June 2023, this figure had skyrocketed to an impressive 11.92 lakh. The SBI report also brings forth an encouraging note highlighting that India's smallest states, and that too from the northeast, Manipur, Mizoram and Nagaland have exhibited an admirable growth of over 20% in ITR filings in the last 9 years. This shows that not only have incomes risen, but so has compliance. The Prime Minister says, and I quote, "This is a manifestation of the spirit of trust which the people have in our government. These findings not only reflect our collective efforts, but also reiterate our potential as a nation. Growing prosperity augurs well for national progress. Undoubtedly, we are standing at the cusp of a new era of economic prosperity and are on course towards fulfilling our dream of a Viksit Bharat or developed India by 2047. Of course, that is something that the Prime Minister said on India's 77th Independence Day earlier this week. All right. A lot of figures there, a lot of number crunching that needs to be done. I'm not going to do it. She's going to do it for us. Shri, what should we make of the data that's been put out by the Prime Minister? Well, a lot of this does sound encouraging, but as a layperson, I want to ask you, how good a measure are income tax returns of the country's economic growth and prosperity?
Let me start with the numbers, Neha. When Prime Minister Modi took over as the Prime Minister in 2014, India was a $2 trillion economy. Today, we will end 2023 with possibly 3.75 trillion. So let's say broadly 4 trillion. So we have pretty much doubled in size over the last 10 years. And as a result, the per capita income of the average Indian has also gone up from about roughly $1,500 to now almost $2,700. So that's again a very significant growth in income and prosperity for the average Aam Aadmi. And obviously, the credit for that goes to the Modi administration, the Prime Minister, and the policies which they have implemented. And the other important thing, Neha, which has happened is the use of technology, which again is something, an initiative driven by the Prime Minister himself, which is on the digitalization of our cash payment system. As more and more tax payments go digital, there is no way for people to hide their income or their wealth. Digitization makes sure that there's a footprint that you leave and you come within the tax bracket. So all the digitalization has actually helped even at the lower level where you're going to buy vegetables or you're paying for a small service, pan wala, cigarette wala, everyone is now accepting digital transaction as payment. So that has made it easy for tax authorities to track and bring all these transactions mainstream. Cash component, while we are a growing economy, cash component may not have dropped, but in relative sense, the transactions on platforms are going up. So that's a good thing. Now, the other thing which I would really want, the government to do is basically start. This is something controversial. I'm like aware of it, but I think this has been talked about for a very long time in this country, and no one has really had the guts to basically bell the cat. So this is basically the agricultural income, Neha. We have to tax agricultural income in this country. Now I know what the critics are going to say. They're going to pounce on me and say that, how can you tax agricultural income when there are farmers committing suicide, there's poverty, there's sustenance farming and all that. I'm absolutely not recommending that we tax anyone who's at subsistence level. But it is high time that we set a limit and say that any agricultural income above this limit or this ceiling has to be and will be taxed. So going back to your point, what does tax payment show about us as a country? I think, Neha, that is probably the most important a measure of the health of an economy and a democracy. I remember there's one American judge who said in one of his judgments that tax is what we pay for being a civilized society. So that's absolutely the truth, Neha. If we as citizens are not going to pay taxes, then we have no right to complain about bad roads, lack of power, water, or security and all these things. Because how is the government going to fund these activities if it is not able to raise taxes? If we as citizens don't pay taxes, so the Prime Minister in his own way is also sending out a message to the people of India, saying that I'm very happy with the way tax numbers have gone up and the collections are going up. But this is his way of telling them that we need to do more. This is a good trend progress, but we need to do a whole lot more. So Neha, this is a trend that needs to continue, because if you look at in India as in absolute numbers, there are just a little more than 8 crore people, 8.13 according to the finance minister, who actually pay taxes. Now that's about 6% of Indians who are actually paying taxes. If I take a country like the US, 45% of people here pay taxes. So how will we become a developed nation if more and more people don't pay taxes? So that is absolutely vital. That is absolutely an indicator of how progressive, modern, and responsible we are as a country, as an economy, Neha. So that has to be done.
You have a point when you talk about the need to tax agricultural income. Yes, it sounds controversial. It's a political hot potato in this country. No political party would want to venture there. But there are many who would agree that, yes, there are some very rich farmers in this country who get away with paying zero taxes. But since, we're talking about controversial things, how's this for a radical thought? How about we abolish direct taxes altogether and have only indirect taxes? That's been talked about.
I think that sort of a policy would work only in Ram Rajya, not when this is not going to work in this century. Unfortunately, it's a good concept. I know that a lot of economists also recommend it, but I don't think it is really a practical approach, because then you are see, there are no free lunches. We have to understand that. The government has to get paid in some fashion. If you're not paying direct taxes, then your spend is going to be taxed. Okay, if your income is not taxed, your spend has to be taxed. There is absolutely no way the government can just give you a free rein and say, okay, you make your money, don't give anything in return, and enjoy your money. That's not going to happen, because ultimately, an economy, any household, for example, I mean, can we have a household where there's no income that comes in and only people are spending money on borrowings? Is that possible? I mean, we don't need to be sophisticated economists to understand this concept. We can just look at our own houses and see, if my income isn't coming in, what happens if my income halves? The quality of life is going to fall. I will not be able to send my children to school, or I will not be able to afford a car, pay my home mortgage. It's the same thing for a government. If a government doesn't raise finances, revenue, it cannot run the country. It's as simple as that. So whether you have the choice of paying it as income tax, or you pay it when you spend it, that's the only two way possible. There cannot be a situation where no one pays any tax at all. That's just not possible, Neha, to my mind.
Just not possible. The fact that I asked you this question, of course, tells you that I am certainly not an economist. But final question on this story, Shri, before we move on. The Prime Minister said even on Independence Day that he truly believes India is going to be a developed nation by 2047. I know that the size of China's economy is 5 times that of India's. Many say that it is still very hard for India to really compete with a country like China. But, just for a moment, I want you to juxtapose these two stories that we've just carried on our show tonight. the growing economic crisis in China and the India growth story. How would you look at this juxtaposition?
Right. So let us not forget, Neha, that China became the global manufacturing powerhouse for a simple reason. The world allowed it to become one, right? So there was tons of money which was going into China, and people were setting up factories in collaboration, and the government was also investing tremendously in manufacturing capabilities, infrastructure, and everything. So who is to say that this cannot happen in India once the global money moves into India? So it's very simple. China did this over the last 30 years, and why can't India become a large economy in another 20 years? Absolutely. I mean, as long as the environment is there, and we give everyone a far more stable environment, which even China today does. I think our judicial system, our political system is far more secure and far more comfortable for global investors than China ever was. So I absolutely believe that India can become a major economic powerhouse. It could become potentially, the second largest economy, or maybe going some far into the future, possibly even the largest economy. So it's a question of India staying on the course and creating an environment where the world trusts us, and monies come in, and we are able to not just build our services industry, but also manufacturing industry, Neha. So this is not a far-fetched thought or a dream. This is something which is within our means. And it is our loss, Neha, if we don't actually go out and grab this opportunity.
Absolutely. It is time for India to go all out and woo foreign investors who, as you pointed out, are clearly looking for safer investment destinations compared to China. Though how long the elephant will take to catch up with the dragon, we will have to wait to find out.